The scent of rain hit the soil as Daniel sat alone on the porch swing, watching the sky cry for him. He clutched a steaming mug in both hands, but the coffee inside had long gone cold. In the stillness of that early October morning, the world seemed to pause for a man who never had the luxury to. 10 years. 10 long, bruising, beautiful years since Amy left. And yet every creak of the floorboards inside still echoed with her ghost. He had stopped wondering why a long time ago. The note she left was vague: I can't breathe. I need to find myself. I'm sorry. But she hadn't just left him. She had left their 5 children too. Lily was only 7 then, Noah 6, the twins, Sophie and Sarah, barely 4, and baby Jacob still in diapers. There was no warning. One day they were a family. The next, a single father stood in the wreckage of an unfinished life. Daniel had 2 choices: crumble, or climb. The first year nearly broke him. He worked 2 jobs, construction by day, janitor by night. He burned meals, forgot parent-teacher meetings, and often fell asleep before he could finish folding laundry. But he never stopped trying. He kept a notebook where he wrote down everything: his fears, his failures, and his quiet promises to his children. I will not let you grow up feeling abandoned. I will be enough. I have to be. Some nights, he would cry alone in the garage, muffling the sound so the kids wouldn't hear. Other times, he would stare at the empty side of the bed, still setting Amy's pillow out of habit. But every morning, he got up and packed 5 lunchboxes with uneven sandwiches and fruit he could barely afford. It wasn't the big things that kept him going. It was the little ones. The way Jacob's hand reached for his in the dark. The proud smile on Lily's face the first time she helped cook dinner. The sound of laughter returning to a house that had once only known silence. He learned everything from scratch: how to braid hair, make Halloween costumes, mend scraped knees and broken hearts. He created Pancake Saturdays, where everyone picked their own toppings. He started bedtime traditions, dance parties in the kitchen, and weekly backyard movie nights with a white sheet and an old projector. Holidays were the hardest. On their first Christmas without Amy, Daniel built gifts from scraps, wooden toys, hand-painted frames with family photos. He couldn't afford much, but what he gave was love, and the children, though young, knew it. People talked, of course. They said Amy had run off with someone else. Some blamed Daniel, others pitied him. But he tuned it all out. He wasn't interested in gossip. He was building a world where his children would never feel unloved. As the years passed, that world grew. Lily blossomed into a natural leader, often helping with her siblings' homework and standing up for them at school. Quiet, thoughtful Noah found his passion in sketching and dreamed of becoming an architect. The twins, energetic and full of spark, became inseparable, always planning pretend adventures in the backyard. Jacob, the youngest, worshipped his father, following him everywhere, mimicking every gesture. At 13, Lily came to him with a dream. "Dad, what if we planted a garden in the backyard? Like, a real one. We can grow vegetables and give some to people who need it." Daniel looked at his daughter and saw something greater than hope. He saw purpose. It reminded him of the tiny seed of faith he had planted the day Amy left. Maybe this was the next chapter. They began with a single raised bed. Carrots, tomatoes, beans. It was a mess. But every mistake was a lesson. Over time, more beds were added. Then a small greenhouse. Soon, neighbors took notice and began to help. Some brought tools, others seeds. Someone donated an old tractor. A retired farmer named Earl began mentoring them. By year 9, the backyard garden had grown into a community movement. What started as a healing project for 5 children became a source of strength for dozens. They named it Second Chance Acres. It became a haven for single parents, recovering addicts, lonely elders, and struggling families. It wasn't just about food. It was about connection. Healing. Forgiveness. Volunteers told their stories as they pulled weeds. Some had lost jobs, others had lost homes, families, hope. But here, everyone was seen. Everyone belonged. And Daniel, humble and kind, stood at the center, not as a leader above others, but as someone who had simply refused to give up. And then, just after the harvest festival of the 10th year, she returned. Amy. Daniel was stacking boxes of produce when he looked up and saw her, standing at the edge of the property in a long coat, soaked in rain, her eyes wide with disbelief. She looked thinner. Older. Worn down by invisible battles. Her hair was tied back in a loose ponytail, and her face carried the weight of years she hadn't shared with them. He didn't speak. Just watched. She took tentative steps forward. "Hi, Daniel." He gave a nod. "Amy." More silence. She looked around, taking in the rows of crops, the barn-turned workshop, the bustling volunteers. "I didn't think you'd still be here." "I never left," he replied simply. Tears welled in her eyes. "I made the biggest mistake of my life. I thought I was drowning. I thought, you'd all be better without me." He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "We kept going. Because we had to." That night, she sat at the dinner table she once abandoned. The kids were hesitant, some more than others. Jacob didn't remember her. Lily remembered everything. Still, they gave her a seat. Not because she had earned it, but because Daniel had taught them grace. Amy noticed how grown-up they were. How Lily carried herself with quiet confidence. How Noah barely looked up, but slid her a drawing of the garden anyway. The twins giggled less and observed more. And Jacob? Jacob asked if she was staying. Over the next few weeks, Amy kept coming back. She helped clean. Cooked meals. Worked the soil with dirt under her nails. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She showed up for it. She learned to listen, to their stories, their pain, their triumphs. Slowly, walls began to fall. Not crumble, but soften. Daniel didn't offer easy words, but he offered space. And that was enough. One day, Daniel found her crying behind the greenhouse. "I see what you've built," she said. "Not just the farm. This family. These hearts. You've raised 5 incredible human beings, and you did it alone." "Not alone," he said softly. "With them." She reached into her bag and pulled out the old, crumpled letter she had left behind. "I read this every year. It reminded me of my cowardice. I kept waiting until I could come back as someone worthy. But that day never came. I just couldn't stay away any longer." He looked at her, his eyes steady. "Sometimes, the only way back is through honesty." Thanksgiving came. The entire community gathered at Second Chance Acres. They brought food, stories, music. At the center stood the family that had once been broken, now whole in a new way. Lily stood up to speak. Her voice trembled, but her words did not. 10 years ago, my mom left. It broke something in us. But my dad, he built something from that break. He taught us to grow instead of grieve. He created a home that stretched beyond our walls. And now, this farm feeds people, loves people, heals people. Because he stayed. Because he chose love over anger. Because he believed in second chances. She turned to her father, eyes full of tears. "You are our miracle." The crowd stood. Applauded. Amy sobbed. Later that night, Daniel and Amy sat on the porch swing under a quilt of stars. "You could have hated me," she whispered. "I did. For a while. But hate is a heavy thing to carry. Do you think there's still a place for me here?" He looked out over the fields, the lights twinkling in the barn, the laughter of his children echoing through the night. There's always a place for someone willing to plant something good. And there, under the moonlit sky, a new season began, not a return to the past, but a step forward into something honest, hard-earned, and full of hope. Because sometimes, the most beautiful things grow in the places once left barren. And Daniel? He didn't just survive. He bloomed.